trade how
以及刚才他也特别说到了，我们在应对气候变化，等各个方面呢，都有相当好。
So from all
双方呢都支持这个 WTO 组织的这个规则和其他多边主义组织的这些规则，同时呢，我们也主张呢，在这个基础上呢，进一步改革。
Those further reports with this of these rules. All these ideas, our Chinese President Xi Jinping commented on them in last year's Davos Forum. At the present, we are talking about trade, we're talking about economy. One of the focus is the China-US trade war, of course. Based on the game theory, the trade negotiation process is a process of game. It's a process of gaming. The gaming between these two sides, China, US, is that US goes first, China follows. When one plays the right side, like threatening, all these are specific ways of a game rule. So in the process of a game playing, these are not surprising at all. The objective of a gaming, for one thing, it might be out of domestic political considerations. Possibly it is not the real cause from domestic economy. What we could see is that it's the beginning of the chess game. It is too far away to say a conclusion. We sincerely hope these type of game can gradually come to calmness, balance, and people should think about the big picture. People should think about the interests and common benefits of the whole world. Secondly, these games are not just bilateral. It involves all different parties. We sincerely hope that we could carry out communications and adjustment with EU countries in order to achieve the objective we all look forward to seeing. The China-EU trade war, we do not know what the future might be. But my personal understanding is that we could give out two assumptions. One assumption is that in the heart of the United States of America, she's going to establish a free trade system that is beneficial to herself. Because the American tradition is that economy developed in free economy. China and EU, as well as other countries from Asia, as well as through communication and understanding between the EU side and the European and the Asian countries, will try our best to avoid too hard impact or loss or damage. We have a second assumption, that is, the American side, after its internal consultation, will choose to leave the free trade system and choose trade protectionism. They will stay away from multilateralism. She's going to rely on bilateral negotiation and agreement. The second assumption is that US is choosing to distort the market. Therefore, the resource allocation efficiency is low. Possibly, America is using tariff to make up the fiscal deficit recently experienced. Assumption. I would say sorry to entrepreneurs and enterprises as well as the industry of the United States of America. If the second assumption comes true, we need China and EU, as well as other Asian countries, of course including other countries from the rest of the world, to work hard to facilitate and liberate the trade in order to complete or complement the loss caused by the unilateralism by the United States of America. My personal belief is that the first assumption is to happen. I also believe the future trend will be the trend of the first assumption. But no matter what assumption goes ahead, the communication exchange between China and the EU is necessary and beneficial. President Van Rompuy mentioned just now, between China and the EU, we need to facilitate and quicken or speed up our bilateral investment agreement negotiation. Chinese economy is a transitional economy from a planned economy to China choose a gradual yet stable and resolute transition. China is a huge country. In the process of transition, we might encounter difficulties or ups and downs. The process of the transition and foreign investment access, intellectual property, protection, financial resource allocation, as well as all aspects of economy. There are some rooms for improvement for governments. Some industry players from the European side have plans. I believe during the long process of transition, domestically speaking, we have different opinions, we have different discussion points inside China. Many people refuse to listen to the criticism. Welcome the criticism from the EU. They believe we can use the criticism, we can use the voice of criticism to speed up reform and opening up process. I sincerely wish friends from the would listen to the explanation and clarification from the Chinese colleagues, so you could have more opportunities to understand the leading group of deepening reform that appears in the 19th National Congress report. So you could have more information of the plan. You can look at the situation dynamically rather than having a stable or non-dynamic picture. Of course, at the same time, we will listen carefully to the recommendations and suggestions from our Bruegel colleagues. We will bring the recommendations and the suggestions back to China and further study them. At present, some media coverage used some instigation or sensational ways to comment on the status quo of China and the Chinese economy. It seems during the past several years, these media presses held a positive view on China. All of a sudden, overnight, they turned their direction of the wind to criticize or provide a negative comment on Chinese economy. I would like to mention several points. Is Chinese economy a dominant economy by state-owned enterprises? State-owned economy account for some share. Sometimes it's misleading. The biggest lion's share of the listed companies are these listed companies, state-owned companies, or a mixture ownership companies. In the middle of the 1990s, we carried out privatization of state-owned enterprises. It is something like the competition-neutral OECD enterprises, something like the competition neutrality or competition neutrality arrangement. After the 1990s, China carried out shares reform and company governance reform. Many companies became publicly listed companies. Before the financial crisis, these reforms has been finished. After that, the private shares, foreign shares, and shares from the pension fund account for. We have come to note that many important industries like petroleum industry, national grid, internet industry, as well as insurance companies, they are all companies of this type. But if we talk about the statistics, shareholders, different stakeholders have a different understanding. They regard this part as the state-owned share, and other parties might regard this part as the private share. If we use different calculation method, and there will be different understanding of the structure of the ownership of a company. So whether a company is a state-owned company or not, it is quite difficult to say. Different people have different understanding. State-owned enterprise does not mean it has national subsidy. In the middle of the 1990s, the fiscal income just accounted for 11% of GDP. Actually, China did not have enough money to subsidize the state-owned enterprises. Therefore, in the middle of the 1990s, the country would show the limited responsibility. At present, the fiscal situation is getting better. It only accounts for 20% of GDP, the fiscal income. It's lowering than the average number of other developing countries. So the fiscal load, the expenditure pressure is quite huge. There is rarely an opportunity for the central government to carry out a systematic subsidy system. Another aspect is that Chinese economy pays great attention to IPR protection and protection of commercial confidentiality. The issues you focused and you paid attention to was true and did exist in China. Our Premier Li Keqiang also commented on this. And there are some laws and regulations starting from quite some time ago, but implementation of the laws and the regulations need to be reinforced. We welcome pressure from the EU side. Therefore, we could more effectively implement the rules and the laws of IPR protection. Under such circumstances, there will still be some rare cases of intellectual property stealing or infringement of intellectual property. I think we need to further analyze what industry, what technology, or what innovation needs to be further protected. The majority of technological companies and innovation companies are based on research and development. The investment in research and development has been growing in China. So some specific cases, some single cases should not be exaggerated, I should say. Intellectual rights property is based on scientific knowledge, and the spreading of knowledge and the spreading of scientific knowledge is natural, and they are from education investment as well as innovation rate as well as basic infrastructure. If we look at Chinese internet companies, China actually enters into a take-off stage of technology and innovation. Discussion in this respect should be more objectively focused on the actual situation in China. The outward investment of China, if I judge from the statistics of the financial industry, the lion's share of the investment outward is to get more profit So this is a profit-driven investment. There are some small number of investment projects that are used to acquire technology, but quite a small number of them. Secondly, state-owned banks are lending only to state-owned enterprises, and the interest rate is quite low. This equals to another way of government subsidy. There are some voices in this regard. I believe these voices are exaggerated. We have the chief economist from Bank of China present here today with us, and he could answer your questions. Besides, many major financial institutions and major financial banks have a deep understanding of Chinese financial industry. The loan of SOEs in China